It was a beautiful day on the island of Sodor. All the big engines and the little engines were working very hard. Even the little narrow gauge engines were working hard. One morning, Duncan puffed into the wharf. Thomas was there. "Hello, Duncan," said Thomas. "You look happy today." "Hello, Thomas," said Duncan. "Yes, I am very happy today." Then Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "Duncan, you are to bring some freight cars here at the wharf. You are to work with Thomas." "Yes, sir," said Duncan. "Yes, sir, will do," said Thomas. Then Duncan had a tricky idea. "You big engines are not very fast than us," said Duncan. "Yes, we are," said Thomas, "because all you little engines do is just pull small loads," said Thomas. This made Duncan very cross. "Let's have a race," said Duncan. "Then I can show you who's really the fastest." "Pooh," said Thomas. "I know I'll win because I'm bigger than you." Then the two engines set off. Duncan was chuffing cheerfully along. "I know I can beat Thomas," said Duncan. Duncan backed up into the freight cars. And then he set off happily. Duncan was approaching the junction. Rusty was there. "Hello, Duncan," said Rusty. "You seem like you're in a hurry today." "Hello, Rusty," said Duncan. "Yes, I'm having a contest with Thomas." Duncan's signal changed to green, and then he huffed happily away. Thomas was approaching the junction. Henry was there. "Hello, Thomas," said Henry. Hello, Henry." "You seem like you're out of puff," said Henry. "Do you want me to take the heavy load for you?" Thomas was cross. "No, thank you. I don't need big tender engines like you to carry heavy loads that tank engines can carry," said Thomas crossly. This made Henry sad. "I was just trying to help," he said. Thomas' signal changed to green, and then he huffed away. Then Thomas puffed into the wharf right before Duncan did. Then Duncan puffed in. Duncan chuckled. "Ha ha ha, you're out of puff," chuckled Duncan. "Says the one who lost the race," laughed Thomas. This made Duncan very cross. "I'll show you who's strong and who's useful," said Duncan. Then Duncan huffed crossly away. Duncan stopped at a junction. Then he noticed right next to him was a long line of freight cars. Then an idea flew into Duncan's funnel. "I can pull all those freight cars and show Thomas I really am strong," he huffed to himself. Duncan was delighted. So then Duncan backed up and coupled up to those freight cars. And then Duncan huffed happily away. "I must show Thomas I am strong. I must show Thomas I am strong," he huffed to himself. The train was long and heavy. Then Duncan huffed by Rheneas. He panted and panted across the countryside. Rheneas was surprised. "That's a lot of heavy freight cars," he said. "Duncan, do you want me to help you pull those?" "No, thank you," panted Duncan. Duncan huffed and panted through tunnels. "I must show Thomas I am strong," he panted. Duncan chuffed up a steep hill. He was panting and his axles ached. Duncan's wheels were spinning and spinning, until at last Duncan reached the top. "Hooray! I did it," he said. Then there was trouble. There was a loud crack. "Bust my buffers," said Duncan. "I broke my brakes." Duncan rolled faster and faster down the hill. "Oh no, help, I cannot stop," said Duncan. Duncan roared right past by Peter Sam. Peter Sam was surprised. Then Duncan raced right by Thomas at the wharf. "Help, I cannot stop." Thomas was surprised. Then there was trouble. Duncan went right around the bend and came right off the tracks. "Oh no," he cried. All the cars came right off the tracks. "Bust my buffers," said Duncan. "I'm off the tracks." Sir Handel arrived with the breakdown train, and Sir Topham Hatt was on board. He was very cross. "Duncan," he boomed, "you have caused confusion and delay. You were too busy showing off instead of doing your jobs. Now you have to go to the repair yard." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," said Duncan sadly. Duncan felt terrible. At last, Duncan was back on the tracks. Skarloey shunted him to the repair yard. Duncan felt sad at the repair yard. He had to get new brakes. A few hours later, Duncan was repaired, and then he was back on track. Then Duncan huffed happily at the wharf. Then Thomas puffed up. "Thomas, I want to say I'm very sorry for showing off," said Duncan. "That's all right," said Thomas, "and I'm sorry to hear about your accident." "Okay, I'll be right back," said Duncan, and then he huffed away to get the cars. Thomas watched Duncan chuff away. At last, Duncan chuffed into the wharf with the freight cars. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting. "Well done, Duncan. You brought the delivery on time without showing off. You are a really useful engine." "Thank you, sir," said Duncan. Then Duncan told Thomas something. "You know, Thomas, it doesn't matter who's big or who's small or who's strong and who's weak. What matters is that who is the most really useful engine. And we're both really useful engines." And the two engines laughed.